What are you doing? You're watching a fish swim by. It's a little weird because you can see right through it. And if you look closely, there's a city inside of it at night. The lights are flickering and you can see the tiny people moving about their daily lives. But how could this be possible? Let me explain. You see, living things are made up of smaller living things. For example, you are made up of trillions of cells. Cells are made up of smaller parts, like a nucleus and mitochondria. And those parts are made up of even tinier things, like molecules. Everything in the universe is made up of smaller things. This goes for the fish, too. When we look at a fish from the outside, all we see is water and scales and fins. But if we could zoom into the fish and keep zooming until we were the size of a molecule, we would see that the fish is actually made up of tiny cities. These molecular cities have streets and buildings and tiny people called animators. They run around the molecular city, scurrying back and forth. They work hard to keep the fish alive, and if they stop working, the fish dies. Let's go back out of the fish now and look at the world around us. Everything we see is made up of molecules. When those molecules move around, we call that life. So when we look at the fish again, we're really looking at the city within. Now let's go back in time and meet the people who discovered this. In the beginning, no one knew what anything was made up of. People thought everything was an element, just like gold and silver and lead. They didn't know that you could zoom into stuff and find that it was made up of tinier stuff. Then in 1543, a man named Andreas Vesalius published a book about human anatomy. He had been dissecting bodies and he noticed that human skin was made up of smaller things than skin. These small things were cells. Vesalius was the first person to realize that you could zoom into living things and find that they were made up of smaller living things. Then in 1665, a man named Robert Brown was looking at a thin slice of cork under a microscope when he saw something that looked like a bunch of tiny rooms. He thought these rooms might be the basic units of all living things. So he named them cells because he thought they looked like the cells where monks lived. Then in 1932, a scientist named Ernst Ruska built the first transmission electron microscope. With this new technology, scientists could zoom into things much smaller than they had ever seen before. Using his microscope, scientists were able to see that cells were made up of even tinier things, things that we now call molecules. And so over the course of just a few hundred years, our understanding of the world went from this to this to this. We went from thinking that everything was made up of elements to seeing that everything was made up of cells to realizing that cells were made up of molecules. Now, with all of this knowledge, let's go back to the fish at the beginning of the video. Remember how I said that everything in the universe is made up of smaller things? Well, this is not actually true. There is one thing that nothing is made up of, and that is space. Nothing is made up of space. So when we look at the fish, we're really looking at all the stuff that's not space. When we look at the ocean, we're really looking at all the stuff that's not space. When we look at the mountains, we're really looking at all the stuff that's not space. Space itself is empty. It's literally nothing. And that's why there's no such thing as antimatter. If you wanted to make antimatter, you'd have to take all the stuff that's not space and put it together in a different way. But since there's no way to take apart the stuff that's not space and put it back together differently, antimatter will never exist. There's a lot more to the story, but that's basically how we got here. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit the like button. If you didn't like this video, hit the dislike button. Check out my other videos. Comment below with video suggestions. And don't forget to subscribe.